Hi, Brian.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Hey, Chin, how's it going?
Yeah, let's kick off our discussion. Okay. Mm.
So, just for everyone's, just to let people know, that the room situation at the office I'm visiting is such that I'm going to get kicked twice during this meeting, so I might have to like pick up, go find another room, and then pick up and go find another room. But I will reappear.
Okay. So welcome everyone to join. Actually, great to see you guys again since Madrid. And so this is the first interim meeting since Madrid, and hope everyone doing very well. And so as usual, this session will be recorded. Note well. So this. Just a reminder for IETF policy on various topics such as patent, code of conduct. If you want to know the detail, please refer to the following BCP document in the bottom. Oh, sorry. So working group status, we have two work streams. I think these both work streams target to provide input to the SCONE-based protocol. In addition, for semantic work stream, also can provide input to the applicability chapter item. For interim meeting, as usual, we in the Madrid we agree to schedule more monthly meeting, but less frequently than previous we scheduled before the Madrid. So the first meeting is the meeting today we have now, and the next interim meeting will be scheduled in September 17. If needed, we'll schedule another interim meeting in October. The milestone working status currently SCONE-based protocol has already been adopted as working group chapter before the Madrid. And for second chapter item, as we discussed in the Madrid, this like a good progress. So we'll pay more attention to this work item. So in the next interim meeting, we'll allocate more time to discuss this applicability. Hope propellant to help drive the progress before we have this interim meeting.
So I am noticing here that we have that next deliverable still noted with a milestone date of November 2025. We should probably go ahead and make an edit to push that out, because I think we are going to focus on getting the protocol done sort of in the Montreal timeframe if possible, but we wanted to leave the applicability and manageability open for implementation. So we should probably add some time to that. We can take that offline, I think, with our esteemed responsible AD.
Yeah. So meeting administrator, and so for today's discussion, if you have any comments or input, please join the queue, and we as a chair will use meeting echo to manage the queue. And please identify yourself before you speak. If you are not presenting anything, please mute yourself and take a video off. And we also need someone volunteer to take notes. We already sent the notes link to the chat window. And for Zoom Deeper, please help to watch the discussion and forward the key discussion point to the meeting room. So here's the agenda for today's discussion, and I think we focus on protocol finalizing, and three open issues we highlight here, including the initial indication time window, and if time is allowed, and we will discuss more open issue. I think pretty much we have today, and any agenda batch. If none, actually we will pass control to Martin or Marcus.
Martin? Marcus, which one of you wants to take?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the controls.
Cool.
I'm going to share the. Is the first issue? Let's do the indication one. That's easy. No, that one. So, Chin, I think from you, I need you to stop sharing the slides and give me the what's the name?
Okay.
And I show the
my bad. Yeah. Okay.
All right. I've got slide control, but not screen sharing control.
Let me check.
I am only seeing the option to pass slides control.
Yeah.
Oh no, really? Let me try this again.
Oh wait, hold on. No, I mean I see the ask. I am not sure how to action the ask. You can't take that and make it.
No, there's no magic.
What happened to the UI? This used to work. User management. I can kick you. I can make you an observer. I can open your data tracker profile. That doesn't help. Can you ask again?
Done.
For screen share. Yeah, there we go.
Ooh.
It's on the queue icon, not on the user icon. Okay, got it.
And now I've got a list of thousands. All right. It's on the screen, right?
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Size.
Yep.
Right. So you'll note that this issue is closed. And that is because we managed to merge a pull request that solved it. So I'm just going to do a brief walkthrough of the changes here, and we can discuss. So if you want to indicate, this is what we discussed in Madrid. If you want to indicate as a client that the flow potentially will end up being SCONE supported, you put 2 bytes at the end of the packet. That's it. And there's some discussion about the limitations of what that means, and a discussion about migrated flows, because we don't have the ability to send that particular signal on a migrated flow necessarily, because once Quick is running, it only uses short packets, at least in version 1 and 2. So there's the potential here for actual SCONE packets to be sent rather than the indication, which is far more indicative of the fact that the flow supports the protocol. So that's a recommendation rather than a hard requirement, whereas the indication itself must be sent on every datagram until there's something comes back from the server. So that that gives you the ability to ensure that at least one of those indications is seen by a network element. It's not just the first packet you generate, it's every single one of them. Any questions?
Corey, go ahead.
Yeah. Where did the two silly numbers come from? What are they?
Oh, it's I have a tool that generates code points for quick. I asked it to generate a version because there's no two byte field available. I just took the first 2 bytes of the version number. I can show you that if you like. It looks like this. You put in a string and it does some magic and generates a number.
Okay, so it's just some unique number.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like a lot of the other stuff that I'm doing here, randomly selected is probably the best. And that's about as random as you can get. Nothing up my sleeve.
Maria, go ahead.
Yeah, so did we just invent yet another way how to extend quick? And is that what we really want?
Apparently we did, yeah. I don't know if that's yet a good idea or not, but it's what we have.
So if we have a migration, the first packet in the flow will be a short header. And if I understand correctly, you can't really do this because that'll mess up with the auth tag, correct?
That's right. Yeah. There's no way to do this with a short header. You can put something ahead of the short header packet, but it has to be a packet that the recipient is able to receive, and that's how SCONE works. But and we can do that in the migration case. So that's what the pull request recommends. So it's presently in the editor's copy of the document. Anything else?
So just as a
Right.
procedural point on this, we're trying to get to the point, I think by the end of this meeting, where like all of the open pull requests that like we were talking about in Madrid have a resolution. They're either merged or mergeable. Can you go ahead and roll another version of the document to the data tracker after all of that closes?
Yeah, I think we're being reluctant to do so thus far because of the open discussion on one of these other issues.
Exactly. So, hopefully we get to the end today such that it's pretty clear that that's a doable thing, but
yeah.
And with that, I think we should move on.
So let's do another relatively easy one, and we use the balance of time. I think it's this one was the issue that we were talking about, which talks about network inserted packets. So the possibility that network elements could, if they see a flow that they think understands SCONE, insert a SCONE packet so that they could get their signal to the endpoint without having to see the endpoints generate the SCONE packet themselves. So there's a bunch of discussion here. I'm going to point out that we could stop network elements from doing this in one or two ways, but we have not decided to do that. Nor do I think we need to encourage that if the endpoints are, encourage them to insert them in any way, because the endpoints send SCONE packets themselves, and we can provide advice on sending the SCONE packets relatively frequently so the network has an opportunity to get its signals through in a reasonable time frame. So there's a discussion here. I think those of us who have commented here are relatively well aligned on what the constraints are. but it'd be interesting to hear from others as to whether or not this is necessary. My position is that we don't need to do anything, and we can remain silent until such time as we have more information.
Go ahead, Alan.
Alan Frindell. So you're saying that you're going to allow network elements to do this if they want to, and the endpoints are not going to blow up if they do?
We're not going to promise anything. In future, we have the possibility of stopping network element or stopping the signal from getting through by saying that only packets that the endpoint put a SCONE packet in the first place can do that. And I don't know that we need to do that, but we're not saying anything right now.
Okay. But I think if it sounds like you're reserving the right in future to do this, if some to
Or to allow it.
react if somebody does this, do you need to warn them now to not start doing it, or building systems that depend on it, so that you don't have you lose the inability to turn it off later if you want to, or create a big problem if you do?
Yeah, so that's a good point. We could say that we're not doing anything either way to allow for either possibility. One being to stop it entirely, or one being to explicitly allow it.
Okay. I mean, how is that better than just saying in this version, don't do it?
That's effectively what we'd be saying, yeah. So we can do that, yeah.
Okay. For me, I think the interoperability troubles you might be creating by not saying anything is, if that's really the direction the working group wants to take, it'd be better to just say, like, don't do this in V1, and we may change our mind later or something.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I think we could just put some simple statement in there. We don't need to enforce it in any way. I also think that if other related discussions, if we end up on resolutions on that, on like how frequently you can actually expect rate signals to be kind of adhered to and so on, that are in related discussions, there's really like very little incentive for any network element to start doing this. So yeah, maybe a simple sentence, and I think this is going to be a non-issue if we resolve the other conversations about like what we call enforcement intervals and frequency of sending stuff and so on. So, yeah.
Right. So I do have a pull request up for that in case, and it sounds like we're headed in that direction, which makes sense to me. None.
Yeah, forbidding insertion is fine. I think if we allow it, then that raises weird issues, like if you have multiple flows, multiple connections, quick connections in the same flow, and they have different SCONE capabilities, and it's just the whole thing we don't want to deal with. It's a weird edge case, but you know that makes specs painful.
Right. Yep. Good point. Brian.
Yeah, as an individual, as I understand it, the primary reason not to mention this at all would be in case there are people who would build injectors to whom that idea had not occurred, right? Like we don't want to point out and say like, hey, don't do this thing. Is like, oh, I hadn't even considered that as an option. I think for something like for the simplicity of this protocol, I don't think that that's really, I tend to lean on that side of like, don't point out the glaring rules of physics, but in this particular option, I think I agree. Again, no chair hat with sort of where this conversation is going. It probably makes sense to say, yeah, just don't do it.
All right, Miriam.
Yeah, I don't think we can really say much because, I mean, we cannot stop anybody to insert these packets, and we cannot. And if we try to kind of enforce that in some way, I think that would just create an attack vector. So we cannot stop anybody, and then when you receive a signal at the receiver side, you can always decide to either use it or ignore it. That's true for anything. So
yeah,
I don't know.
We could create a system whereby they would be always ignored, and so it would be always pointless to insert them. I don't think there's any other action that could be taken on the recipient end.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think it's a valid signal because you know what kind of deployment we have or whatever, you might actually benefit from not ignoring it, right? So why should we really say anything about it?
Because of the point that Martin made, I think.
Which was?
That you don't necessarily know that this packet's going to be routed in the direction that you would that would result in it being received by someone that did actually understand it. So you could just be inducing packet drop if you inserted the signal at that point.
That's that. I was just going to pressure test, or maybe following on Martin's thing is this something it would allow? Maybe I'm asking the same question Mira did. Is like, could there be benefits of to the network operators to them not have to look for SCONE signals, be able to put them when it suits for them, and we don't have to sort of like coordinate timing and checking and making sure that like we're aligned there?
I'm struggling with this one, given the sort of timeframes that we're talking about and the rate at which we're recommending people send packets. I don't think that network elements are going to be sort of short of the opportunity to send updates of their own. So I don't think that's a major concern. And that's the only reason I can think of wanting to be able to do this. All right.
So I think we've drained the queue on that one. I think that seems like simple PR single sentence. Don't.
No, it's not, it's a bit more than that. It's on screen right now. It's 3 sentences.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, cool. Hold on. Got to look at that. Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Yeah. We're not stopping you. We're saying don't. We're not enforcing it, but we might enforce it in the future.
Does anybody here object to merging 48? We have like one emphatic non-objection. Cool. I think you got what you need out of this one. We can use the balance of time on the fun one.
Yeah. Oh boy. No. Is this the one? No. Which issue is it? This one. There's a discussion on 55 that relates to this as well. I think it's fundamentally the same question. So that's why I had that one up. So the primary question here is not should this be X seconds or Y seconds. I think we are currently sitting at 67, which is a prime number of seconds, and that's the uninteresting part of this discussion. The more interesting part of this discussion is, do we require network elements to update every SCONE packet that goes past? Or can we allow them to update fewer than that? And when they do update, what is the expected reaction on the part of endpoints? And therefore, what sort of monitoring and enforcement should a network element sort of engage in order to ensure that the rate limits are within? What does it mean to be within the advice that's been given? So there's a bunch of pull requests open and a bunch of discussion about this sort of thing. And I'm stuck because I don't understand how other people are thinking on this one, and I need some help. So if we look at 55, there's a whole bunch of +1s on something that I don't understand. So if Kazuo is here, I want an explanation of how this would work, as in, what are the physics of the situation?
I thought Kazuha was here, but I'm not currently seeing him in the participant.
It is presently very, very early.
Yes.
So
Yeah, but I want to say that I already saw him, but I'm not sure that that is true. That might be hallucination.
Does anyone else understand how this would work? So the things that I'm concerned about here is that if you increase the throughput advice, I think it's relatively straightforward to just step up your send rate. But if you reduce the advice, say you halve it, and the endpoints have been using the capacity within the advice that was previously available, say it was 10 megabit and it goes down to 5 megabit. If they were previously sending at 10 megabit, then at the point that the advice comes in, they will have an entire window worth of 10 megabit data exchange. That will mean that they can't send anything for the next, well, it halved, so half a window. That seems not ideal. Marcus.
Yeah, I agree. That's not ideal. I think the resolution is actually what it is you are suggesting, that when you reduce, you pretty much need to forget any previous state that you had on any accounting that you've done over like volume, because otherwise you just risk getting into some weird situation where you get a new advice and you're stuck. I think we just have to live with that. I think it's not something that happens that frequently. I mean, there might be conditions that forces you to that trigger changes to rate advice being sent, throughput advice being sent. That happens. Just scrap your accounting and move on. Otherwise, we create weird situations. And I don't think we need to overcomplicate this. I don't think we need to think too much about it. You change the state, you remove your previous history. I think that should be the most straightforward way to think about this.
I think the other consideration here that we're dealing with is what if a SCONE packet is not updated by a network element? It slips the net, and what do we do in that circumstance?
If it's not updated, then you will see then you will see a larger throughput advice, right? You will see a higher rate than intended. That's
or infinite potentially, right? Because we have the unbounded maximum, which is the default.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you're bouncing back and forth between them and forgetting every time it drops down, then your effective send rate becomes infinite. Or only limited by the congestion control.
Can I jump in on that topic very briefly? Because that's why I'm in queue. So one potential thing that alleviates that problem slightly, but introduces another problem, would be to change the semantics of the default to not actually indicate a rate at all, and it indicates nothing. And then if you end up in a situation where a network element does not update that, then the client knows that it's able to distinguish between nothing and infinite. That has another property that's not completely nice, which is that if you in the niche situation where you have multiple network elements on the path, and they're both updating things not at the same. If they're both choosing to not update every single SCONE packet, then the thing gets completely out of whack and desynced. So I think to some degree, if we wanted to have such a element, have such a mechanism, I would prefer to just like burn one of the rates and say the default rate carries no information. And then just if you have a network path that has multiple elements than just like it's a sort of here be dragon sort of situation. And it's, if you want to be lazy and not update everything, you're going to have to deal with a weird edge case that you might get into that situation.
And all of that to avoid remembering for the full window.
Yeah, and yes. And also, I would not be surprised if there's network elements that just are not going to measure anything. And they're just going to like pop up once, and then they're going to stamp some stuff, and then they're going to go back to sleep. And that's going to be like the end of their involvement in the matter. And so that basically makes that case possible without really having to do anything.
Well, it wouldn't, would it? It would only work if that were the only network element doing that.
Yes, it would only work in the case where it's only one. You have one network element. It's only going to be active for a short amount of time, and then it's going to go back to sleep until it gets new information or it actually wants to like unlimit something. So like, let's say you start with a limit that's like 5 megabits per second. It goes to sleep for 5 minutes, and then it comes back and it's like, hey, you have unlimited now. And now it's able to say, now you have unlimited. It would solve that case, assuming there are no other network elements doing the same thing on the path.
All right, let's run through the queue. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask why we weren't defining an unknown thing at the sender and just sending that out rather than infinite. I guess that's the same story as Matt. It seems like it introduces new issues, but it also seems like if I have some element on the path that kind of has a big queue of stuff to do and it doesn't kind of get round to it, and then we don't get any marks at all from it, which is probably the nicest thing from my point of view. So I'd like to think that maybe these network elements on the path don't actually quite do what we hope they do, and we are robust to it in some way. So that was kind of motivating that unknown value.
John.
I might just add another +1 to that. And so sort of considering that, I think there's be a trade-off between if the network elements must update it all the time, then maybe we don't need this. But I think it's a good point of they might just drop it. And so you can't maybe distinguish between a network element being lazy versus it being overworked and working, being too hard. And so, yeah, it does fall apart with 2, but I think there's other problems. And so I may mention another +1 to this.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about network elements that would like pop into existence, mark something, and then just stop doing that. I don't think that's a good idea. But of course, we don't know what network elements might be doing. I still think that wouldn't the simplest be just to have some sort of minimum filter at the receiver of this. So the smallest thing I saw in some period of time is what I'm going to adhere to, because that would account for any misses that you have, right? Like you might for whatever reason not be able to update, but if you send frequently enough, and we have some period of time over which you just select the minimum, then I think we would be good, and we don't have to make things, invent new kinds of signal types or whatever.
Yeah. So what pull request number 46 does is that minimum thing, which allows the network elements to update as often or as little as they choose within bounds, and that bound would be the window that we're enforcing over, or we're recommending that folks enforce over. So that's the 67 seconds. And so as long as you update once every 67 seconds, then your signal is still active, and the advice applies. I thought that was the simplest thing. Kazuo thinks there's something even simpler. And I don't know whether we can account for this possibility of things slipping the net, or we need to deal with the fact that there might be multiple. So it seems like there might not be multiple on the path in most circumstances, but are we building a protocol that's robust to that, or not? And yeah, Martin points out If you're using something like ECMP with routes that change, then the minimum over a 67-second window gives you the ability to stay robust to that as well. Advice times out if it's not updated, continually refreshed. So Kazuo made a point here about the fragility of this sort of having to forget thing, and I think that's fair criticism, but I don't see any way to avoid that sort of thing. So I'm stuck. Anyone want to help out? I can be patient. Matt.
Button. These buttons are too close together. Is it possible we just don't have quite enough information to say what to do here at the moment? Because I think like we have some. I think we have a mixed set of problems that we're trying to grapple with. Like we've heard some people, like I know they're not on the call, but one of the issues here came from a vendor perspective of not wanting to update every single one, and it seems like they'd also not be super interested in the time period measurement thing either. So it's like I think we have multiple problems, and we're lacking some concrete feelings about what to do about it because no one has experience with implementing it fully yet. So I'm not exactly sure what to do, and what that means for now. But is this even a problem we have to solve at the moment, or do we need more experience with people actually trying to do something and seeing what the problem is in practice?
All right, let's try to break this down. So there's the question of whether we have an unknown signal or not. I think that's we can have an unlimited signal rather than an unknown signal in the design that's in pull request 46. Yep. But there's no harm in having an unknown signal in that circumstance. There's the question of, do signals time out? Do we have to have the ability to recognize a particular signal, and then does it time out after some period of time? I'm going to say that the enforcement window is the natural time to do that, but we could choose a different number. That'd be fine. And then there's the question of, do we have this forgetfulness when the rate limit drops or the advice reduces? I think that's unavoidable, but I haven't heard anyone suggest otherwise. But we have Kazuo's argument here, which I think is a potential argument for not doing that. And okay, so John, the reason that you would have a timeout is because circumstances change, and you potentially are experiencing a shift in route, and so that there's a new set of network elements involved on the path at some point, and you've not been aware of that change. And so the reason that you would have a timeout is so that the advice that was on the previous path doesn't hold indefinitely once you flip to a new path that doesn't have the same constraints or doesn't even have SCONE supported on that path.
The other thing I'm wondering, by the way, is some of this mitigated by endpoint discretion and more frequent sending of the packets. Like if it is interested in fresher information, it's at its liberty to send things more often.
That's always true. The question is whether or not that just improves your ability to respond to an update in Signal. Yeah, I don't think it really makes a big difference here. So, see what Marcus has to say.
Yeah, no, so yeah, we might want to learn things, how things work. I still think that having a time window is the absolutely simplest solution that we can come up with, that addresses the issue of accidentally not being able to mark packets or having reroutes. I think if we want to start with some baseline and try to learn something, I think that is where we should start. If there are vendors who have both the problem that they don't want to be forced to mark every packet, and they also don't want time windows, I think that's a difficult position to take, because you kind of either have to choose one of those, please. I think that would be the answer. And I think this is a very simple way, and if we realize that this has issues down the line, maybe we can fix that later. But I would take this as the baseline. That would be my take on this.
Thanks. Brian?
Yeah, so again, no chair hat on here. One of the, I came in to say more or less what Marcus did, but less eloquently, I think, honestly. So I think that at this point, we could do one of two things, right? Like, so I think you broke it up very nicely to smush them all back together, because like we do need kind of a smushed solution to this question. I think we could say, on the one hand, the endpoint is in sole control over the signaling rate, right? Like, so the endpoint sets the maximum signaling rate. We do not require the midpoint to mark everything, but you know, it could go sideways if you don't. Or we could say time window, right? Like the pick one or the other. I tend to think that the time window solution here is a simpler solution, but that's just based on my bias as a software engineer, not necessarily a vendor who's done stuff in this space, right? So I would be biased towards saying this seems pretty baked to me. We roll a draft with it, and like this becomes one of the things we try to break in Montreal and leading up to Montreal. And like, if we got it wrong enough that we're not gonna ship the protocol a little bit later because oops, okay, fine. That's how engineering works. Again, no chair hat, but. Go us.
I may have an extreme position, but I think maybe we don't need to take it that seriously and can leave it to the endpoints and to the network elements to sort of do things that they think are reasonable. Given that this is advice, and we're not actually really chartered to develop an enforcement mechanism, I don't think we need to worry too much about exactly what a network element might do if it wants to reduce the signal rate. I think we can let it reduce it, and if the application takes some time to react, that's fine. Actually, we've still got flow control and congestion control, and we don't need an extra rate control in applications for this. So I was reacting to this PR at first, thinking it was really overcomplicating things and maybe tying too much to that time window we were talking about for what is the averaging interval that the rate advice pertains to, and using that to drive a bunch of other things that make it look like we're making a contract with the network to support certain rates or something. So this is my opinion is we're doing too much with over specifying this, and that some of the actual like rules for probing and marking could be left foggy or be nailed down in specific applications and specific provider deployments. But that's just my opinion.
Well, yeah, as for Wesley is I think an interesting point about sort of let us sort of sort it out, maybe not over specifying. I think especially like the enforcement and tracking does seem, I think, concerning as a way to like get into these holes and over specify something that might change in the future. I wanted to lean into something somebody mentioned before. This idea of, do some of these things get solved if the endpoints send the packets more often? But then we do have like this unknown or unchanged option, and then it sort of like gives you a lot more freedom or flexibility. I guess the question is like, why not both and all of them? And if there is load to the endpoints, sending them more often, but then not requiring an update every time, and is that like an option to get both, or is that like an undue amount of load on there? But does that enable this amount of flexibility that Wes was talking about to expand things? And Martin, you're up next.
Thank you. Yeah, I did want to interrogate this no data option a little bit more. I think if people work through the logic, they can see that if you do have two devices in the past, that leads to weird problems where like you dramatically overestimate the data, et cetera. Without running into the logic here, I just wonder, is it like, would it be an issue for anyone to put something in the spec that said, you know, you shall not have two network elements in the path, or you shall not have two ASs in the path that both support SCONE, or something to that effect? Or is that like a serious problem for anyone's use case?
It seems like we can't say that, Martin. I don't know that we can tell people that they have that level of control over network paths between every possible endpoint in their network, such that they could confidently deploy something like SCONE and be sure that there isn't someone else who is also looking to express an opinion. Now, I think it's kind of unlikely that that's going to be the case. I think in a lot of these cases, it's going to be in the access networks. But I just don't think that we can confidently say that their networks will be 100% under control end-to-end from a single entity.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair enough. I mean, I think that's kind of one of those IETF problems where like we know it's never actually going to happen, but it's hard to write language that you know precludes it, as you suggest. But given that all this is advisory, maybe we're eventually just collapsing down to, you know, falling back on congestion control. So maybe it's okay in this case to, you know, the 1/100th of 1% chance that you have two ASs both doing this, right?
Yeah, what was said in chat, I think, is right. The most likely case is that there'll be 0 or 1 of those network elements, but we can't make any guarantees because networks are networks, and we're deploying this on the internet. So I don't think that particularly helps us, unfortunately, which reduces the utility of going from unlimited to unknown, but I still think we can probably do that. Wes?
Yeah, I mean, so my opinion again is that the advice sometimes might not be good advice. Say if there is a case of multiple elements, but that's why it's advice and not a contract or something. So
yeah, we're sort of dicing with this. Well, it's advice. Well, what does the advice mean, and how far do we want to go with specifying, you know, what it means when we say this? And I think that we do need to say something, but maybe we do need to sort of soften the language a little bit so that we're not being so definitive about what it means.
We skipped that step working groups sometimes do of the requirements, and here, so the advice we never maybe all had the same view on what the scope of the advice was, or whether it was something the application actually had to conform to, or whether it could completely choose not to. And yeah, how reliable the advice had to be, how quickly the advice can change. There's a lot of things we might not be aligned on that I think factor into the discussion.
Yeah. Marcus.
I mean, we can't know most of those things, right? We know that these are advice that are being sent for various reasons. We know that probably the worst failure mode is that some network element might just fall back to throttling you instead of instead of doing something else, instead of measuring you. And yeah, we might want to avoid that. We might not have to be super strict and detailed in doing that, but I still think that just specifying some kind of min filter solution is very, very straightforward. And yeah. So I agree with most of what you said, Wes. But and yeah, advice can be bad, but I still think to some degree we want to avoid throttling. But it's not the end of the world if we end up having to throttle someone if the advice did not reach them or whatever.
So I heard a number of people say, well, why don't we try the min filter approach, which is what is in 46, with the horrible forgetfulness when the rate drops, and then see if we can poke holes in it in between now and November. Does anyone find that objectionable for some reason?
So, sorry, chair hat back on. Clarifying, you're asking objectionable, merge this, poke holes. Okay.
That would be the plan, right? So let's find out
Yep.
in what ways does this fall over spectacularly, and in what ways does it work out?
Are there, given that like sort of like the basic sort of protocol simplicity test, right? Like the let us pick an ANRP winner off of the street and have her implement this from scratch in an open source quick thing in less than a day worked. And given that, like, I think we did find some like corner cases in the interop testing, I think we probably are in a situation where we could say, yeah, we're going to use poking holes in the time constant here as sort of the organizing principle of the interop in Montreal. That seems reasonable to me.
I can personally say that implementing this was the matter of less than a day's worth of work.
Yeah.
The indication
that's
was
also like, how to put it. If we have other people implement this and we get sort of like a spread on that distribution, that's also signal.
Yeah, I should say that the indication we talked about earlier was the hardest part because I accidentally messed up our path MTU discovery.
Yep.
But,
oh yeah, because of course.
Because you have to reserve 2 bytes at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was reserving it from the wrong packets.
All right, cool. There was some other like side chat that I saw in the chat about separating out the unknown from this, but I think we would only really do that if we decided that we weren't going to merge this, right?
I think we could do that independent. Otherwise, I mean, unlimited means unknown in effect. So we may as well make it unlimited.
That seems that seems like a thing that is easy to trip over when you're building it.
Right, and making that change we can do orthogonally, and I think we'd probably do that anyway. because it just seems sensible to do that. And
Yeah,
be
but just
much
for
clearer about it.
minimizing, like I would say, if we have a discussion here that's like, oh no, we don't want to merge 46, then it seems pretty reasonable to split that out. But like, I don't know, unless you need extra Git practice.
I can split them out. It's like easy, and they're orthogonal, so we can sort that out. All right.
There is some side conversation in the chat. Do we want to let that converge before?
I think this is Wes saying yes. And Miri is saying doesn't understand why an endpoint should just reset when not receiving new advice. Yes, it does risk throttling. But we're not asking very much of the network elements or the endpoints. They have to update every 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. It's not that difficult.
I'm also going to point out, but it's also just like, it's not an enforceable thing. So it's like, if an endpoint just doesn't reset, I mean, nothing bad is going to happen. It's not like the network element's going to shut it down for staying under a limit it sent a while ago.
Right.
Right.
I think we did hear some. I think we have heard maybe some to Miri's +1 to Wes's point. I think we have heard a little bit of discomfort with the strength of the language in this PR. Like maybe say, hey, these are guidelines for making. We think this works as opposed to thou shalt. And
yeah, like I don't know that it's that strong, but we can. I will take an action to soften it as much as possible. This is how it could potentially do the monitoring, and it is. I don't know if I've made that change yet, but I do have the changes that make it on the monitoring side. It sort of says this is how it could monitor. It's not allowed to monitor any more strictly than this, but that's how it could be monitored.
Does anyone, with all of the caveats that we've discussed to the ability of people to follow along on phones, et cetera, does anybody, back to Martin's original question, does anybody object to merging this with the understanding that we're doing it to figure out the unknowns in it? Please say so in chat or put yourself in queue if that is the case. All right, I think. Oh, hi, John.
right before the end there. But I was going to echo. I think what Martin put in chat is about the expectation of whether or not they must update every packet. But the counter to that is, it seems like this doesn't support this idea that they might not, like if they're overloaded or accidentally there's some sort of packet drop and they miss this packet, and how this would handle that.
So this change says that explicitly says that within any given 67-second window, the network element has to update at least once, and that's all that is required. It can choose not to update packets other than that. It does recommend that it do so on a more frequent cadence than that, but that's what it says in the pull request.
Okay, and that's sort of the expectation then is of the clients that we would take the minimum over the past 67 seconds. So that's your statement of unknown means unlimited or unlimited means unknown is behind that, which was confusing to me.
Right, and so with taking it one, if clients remember, if endpoints remember for 67 seconds, then it doesn't matter if the occasional unlimited gets through. But I think we're going to change to unknown anyway, so that those that do get past with unlimited would now be getting through with unknown, and those are just ignored rather than causing the rate limit to spike to the ceiling. But the effect, by the way, of unknown, if all you get is unknown packets for a period of 67 seconds, is that you will let the congestion controller do whatever it does. You will not seek to constrain your behavior any longer. So it is effectively the same meaning.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So there's really no difference between unknown and unlimited, but maybe it's yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a difference in the other direction. Like if I want to specifically say unlimited, right? Like then I'm unable to do that faster than 67 seconds.
Well, you can. You can if your line rate is below, I think it's 200 gigabits. You can say that the line rate is 200 gigabits. You can basically set your limit to the line rate if you want to lift the ceiling. That would be possible. But that's the biggest number that we have right now.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, it's treating that as highest. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I am writing a summary of this discussion into the PR and comments. It sounds like there's some guidance to review language, make sure that it's clear that this is guidance. We don't need to standardize the client side of things. We should make sure that we are comfortable with how it operates for occasional drops and missing advice. And from Martin has no objection, but wants to look on it. Please don't merge before EOD, AOE. Like wait a bit, then merge it. I think that's what I hear as the advice. Remember, some advice is good, some advice is bad. That's what I hear as the advice to Martin from this one. Do you have anything else you want on this issue, Martin? Cool.
I'm happy. Thank you for the discussion. It was very constructive.
Do we have other issues? We have 26 more minutes. It is very early for some people and they might want coffee, and it is very late for some people and they might want sleep. But are there any other things that we can productively use this time for? Yeah, the 55 is also. Feels like that 24 is also going to be tied into the 20.
So yes, 24 is, there's a separate pull request, I think, that's there. I think that actually, I think that's all tied up in the same pull requests. So there is discussion there. So the advice there is that that endpoints need to send enough of them that the network gets enough opportunities, and it might send as many as it needs to based on its expectations for how quickly it wants to be able to respond to changes in advice, that sort of thing. I think there's text in one of them at some point that we can discuss, but it's pretty banal. It's not that interesting. We discussed this one as well, which we will move to change independently, with a bit of text about the difference between unknown and unlimited being kind of a little bit ambiguous, but the difference is not very big. And then the rest of it, I think these are mostly editorial.
Yeah, okay, good.
So these ones I've flagged with don't plan to do anything. And so this is the semantics definition of the throughput advice. So what does it mean to give advice? And the discussion that we've had just now should address that a little bit more clearly. And the other one here was scope rate limited networks only. And so the discussion here basically petered out, and I think there's no action to be had from all of this. So yes, the protocol only really makes sense if the network is applying some sort of policy. That should be clear already from the text.
Are these sorted by last comment?
Come again?
Are these
no, these are just time ordered.
Okay, got it.
So last updated doesn't change a great deal.
Got it.
Oh, greasing. If anyone wants to talk about greasing, I'm not aware of how we can grease this protocol. If anyone wants to suggest something, then please do so.
Matt.
I mean, I think the obvious thing is just to send versions that are not there, that are not the versions defined. I mean, that's basically
just quick greasing.
You can't do that though. That's the problem.
Well, you can, right? Why can't you?
Well, your packet will be dropped because the other side doesn't understand that version and doesn't know where the packet ends. So if you want to waste datagrams on sending stuff, but that's just quick greasing, as to Brian's point.
Yeah, it is just quick greasing. It would just be, we would say you should do it, I guess. Is basically.
Or not. Because the world doesn't need random quick packets flying around the network that are doing nothing. I don't know. That seems like not our problem. If anyone wants to suggest something, then I think we'll probably have a discussion about it, but I don't. Yes, Martin Duke has a draft for version greasing, which I think is a fine piece of work, but it's not.
But that's general version greasing for quick, right? So yeah.
Exactly.
So I think we can maybe close this as yes, we fixed it because we considered it.
Yeah, yeah, by all means, and that may be the answer there.
Yeah,
but that's all I have. That's I think with the issues that we discussed today, give ourselves a bit of time to beat on the outcome, test it out, see if it makes any sense, see if it can be deployed, that sort of thing, and then declare success. I don't know that there's a lot we can get from having another meeting on this, except to go through the outcome of the changes we've talked about.
Yeah, no, I think we probably want to talk a little bit about, so in the October meeting, I think we will have that meeting. I think I'd like that meeting to be, setting ourselves up for good use of the time at the hackathon. I would ask people here with opinions to spend some time thinking about like how you would beat on this, right? Like, so what are the corner cases? Like, other than just sort of like the general, hey, let's implement it and get some experience with implementing it and see how it feels. Also the, where would you push on this time constant stuff to see it break or bend or be useless, or right, like think about testable predicates around this. I will send out a doodle because I haven't found anything that works better than Doodle. So sorry about the ads. I will send out a doodle for times for that October thing to make sure that we are making the proper choice with respect to time zone pain. And with that, if there is, I'll do the 7-second wait for any other business. Gory.
Yeah, I thought I'd do an AD question instead of a participant question and just ask how you see your charter milestones going. When do you think the PS will be finished?
So looking at where we are and sort of like the burn down rate on issues, the November I think it's realistic to say that the submit to IESG in November, so basically after Montreal, is reasonable. I think the interop could like bring something up where it's like, oh, we actually need to spend some time on this. So if you would be with your IESG hat on, more comfortable with like a little bit more padding on that and say, okay, by January, we could do that. But I think that the getting it done in the Montreal meeting timeframe remains realistic. I would be happy to be contradicted by the editors, but I don't see it. I think we're mostly done.
I'm happy to have that discussion, but I think the question really is it ready for PS at that stage? I mean, do you want to freeze it and actually try it for real on the internet?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because there's another possibility, and you could churn that over in the time before you get to Montreal, but there could be a possibility that we say, yeah, this is fully baked, and there it is. However, we're not going to submit it for an RFC until we actually have that experience of it working for a month or so.
Okay, and then we basically are holding both of those drafts to send up, because we also want to hold the other one for implementation experience, where the implementation experience that goes to sort of like deployment advice goes into the applicability manageability statement, whereas the implementation experience that feeds into protocol changes would go into the protocol doc. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, okay, right. I'm raising that now just so that you can talk about it, because it's a working group thing to think about rather than me saying anything. But I just wondered.
Yeah, I know, that's a really good question. Does anyone who is here have opinions on that, strong or otherwise? Or is that something we should take to the list as part of the edit that we want to make to the charter anyway for the applicability and manageability statement, right? Is that?
Well, it's only a milestone change, but yeah.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Okay, Martin.
Milestone changes you can just click on, right? Like you can just say, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay, other people just talk if they wish, because I mean, that's why I brought it up now rather than bring it up in an email.
Yep. MT, no opinion on that. Speak to having an implementation. Won't be in a position to respect advice. Yeah, so that's the thing, right? Like, is like what, like how much of a deployment would we need to be able to say, okay, we have actual internet experience to the point where this is PS ready? I have no problem like holding the working group open with like occasional meetings. Yeah, exactly. Web APIs for this are difficult. Yep. I have no problem like getting it done. Like we did this with Quick as well, right? So I have no problem like getting it done, and then holding it open for changes. I'm seeing in the chat like a lot of support for this, idea. So I think probably that's an action to the chairs to propose a date, and then we can discuss that on the list and then send it up to you, Gory.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. Marcus.
Yeah, I think one issue here is like what level of deployment experience are we expecting here? Because endpoints and network elements, especially network elements that are deployed in real network, typically work on vastly different kind of release cycles and such. And I mean, we can have implementations in network elements, but having them deployed in like real operator networks and so on I mean, what are the expectations here? I think we would need to discuss, and like what level of experience would you be expecting?
So I think like, yeah, we don't want to wait and publish the RFC 10 years after it like succeeded in the internet. That would be silly. I think so Matt made a point that I would maybe make a friendly amendment to and then amplify. I think there are participants in this work who, while not capable of getting something widespread deployed with multiple interoperable implementations in the internet. I think there are people who could experiment with this at scale in a way that is real enough that you can point to it and say, yes, this didn't break, it was useful, right? I think that is probably not too much to ask. Matt, did you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, like the obvious way to test this is like you don't even have a network element, and you just have your endpoint send vague advice from the outset.
Well, we can even do that. We do that in Montreal. I don't know how long, you know, I don't work for the part of my employer where I could like say anything about this, but like you could actually put in the serving path an experimental element, right? Like so within a single provider, like that does not seem like it would be too hard to do on a staging network or even on like a 1% experiment.
Yeah, so like we would be able to test the endpoint versions of this with no network element, which is to say, look, when we send it where it's cable and it adds this much overhead and blah 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 blah, and it works for video, etc., without any network element. But then like that ignores a whole deployability part of the protocol, which is that, you know, do real network elements, are they able to implement this and do it as we say? So
well, Martin Thompson makes a really good point in the chat that like there are some vendors who are not in this room who will not pay attention to this until there's an RFC number on it, right? So like getting like multiple interoperable things that like even these experiments at scale could work with, like needs a PS first, right? So I think I would see personally, again, I'm going to take my chair hat off. It's over there. I would see personally the bar being, we have like a experiment at scale that shows us some benefit and doesn't break, right? So we can think about that and take that discussion as a list. I don't think we're gonna converge on like a date now, but I think it was. Thanks for the question, Corey. That's actually really good point. Any other business in the remaining 11 minutes? All right, then. Thank you all for getting up early, staying up late, or something in between. This is a really useful conversation. We will see you at the next interim in September. Have a great day, everyone.